Yesterday, we went and visited a Syrian lady that I know in a camp very near the border. So we prayed for her, and I said, did you see anything? Did you see a vision? And she said, yes, I saw a man in white, a sheikh, wearing a white robe. She felt very comfortable in his presence. She says, oh, and by the way, his hands had a hole in it. And you could see the light from behind, like the light shining through the hole in his hand.
All people know about the Middle East, especially in America, is whatever the news is telling you. And it's all bad news. War, famine, geopolitical crisis, ethnic hostility, radical Islam, terrorism. What people don't realize is that God is doing something magnificent across the entire region. And it's all happening in the context of this prayer and worship movement that's arising all across the region. And it's the story no one else is telling.
She said the name Jesus, he just felt this heat wave go through his back, and he got up and he walked out.
And the first thing he said that I am the one you have been searching for.
Some big fire came inside me and shook me.
And he said he was brilliant, filled with light, the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. You have to tell me who this man is.
That's Jesus. That's Jesus, like, who appeared to me.
After waking up, I started being happy. I saw Jesus. I was so happy.
Whatever that was, that's what we're going to be doing until Jesus comes back.
Well, Randall Martinez is the founder and president of MAPS Global, and he joins me now via Skype to tell us more about the documentary 50 Hours. Randall, it's so good to have you. Thank you for being with us today.
Hey, thank you so much. It's good to be here. I still get so pumped when I hear those stories. I've been hearing them for a decade or so. I still get so excited.
Yeah, I know. It ignites my faith hearing those stories. And so, but let's go back to the genesis of all of this. How did the idea behind 50 Hours even begin?
Well, so we've been working in the Middle East for the better part of a decade. And we've been watching this magnificent story unfold before our eyes. Specifically in the context of these houses of prayer or prayer and worship. And I heard you guys talking about it earlier, how prayer and worship is incense. And what we're seeing and what we've been seeing is that where these houses of prayer and this incense is starting to arise, it's shifting the atmosphere. And we're hearing miracles, stories, salvations, healings in historic numbers. And so we started working just about 10 years ago and watching this unfold. And I started coming back and telling these stories to my friends and my family. And one of the main characters in the documentary is my brother-in-law, who came from a evangelical background, kind of mainline. And I was telling him these stories, and he's like, "There's no way that's happening," because he's never heard anything like it. Like most people in America, just never heard anything like this, and yet it's been happening and increasing over the past 10 years.
Yeah. Well, what does the documentary depict?
Sure. So we've been doing and hosting these 50-hour and 100-hour prayer meetings across multiple nations in the Middle East for the last 10 years. And in 2014, we went into northern Iraq, just about 30 miles from ISIS headquarters, and we did a 50-hour prayer meeting. And that was a game changer for us because we watched God break into a war zone with salvation, healing, deliverance, and it launched a house of prayer that's still going to this day. So when we started spreading out across the nations, I said, I'm going to bring a film crew, and I just want to put on film. I want people to see across the world what's actually happening here with the prayer and worship, and then the gospel fruit, the testimonies that are connected to it, and then the geopolitical shifts that are happening because of this prayer. So I brought my brother-in-law along with us, and I said, turn on the cameras, and we went to as many locations as we could. and just documented what is happening.
I love that. And part of the documentary depicts when you guys were actually in Syria. And there was an incident where President Trump actually tweeted something that was a little scary. Talk about that moment.
Well, so, and I don't want to spoil it because this is a part of the film, but it goes back to in 2017. I'll give you just like a really quick short story. We were about to do our 5th 100 hours in Iraq, and the borders closed down. So I went to Jordan, where a house of prayer had started in Jordan. And I met with the leader, and he said, I had this dream that we were doing prayer in every nation surrounding Syria, like a ring of fire. And he said, do you want to do something like that? I said, I don't know, but let's say yes to God and let him do it. So we get to 2018, which is when this film was, when we filmed 50 hours. And we put out a kind of a call, who wants to do a 50 hours together? And every nation surrounding Syria signed up to be on this prayer event. And so we realized God was unfolding something really significant for us. And so I was back in Amman, Jordan in 2018. The day we were supposed to start the 50 hours, I was back in Amman, Jordan in the house of prayer there. And I wake up and we have every nation, house of prayer in every nation surrounding Syria. And Trump tweets that morning, he says, the United States, Britain, and France are deliberating on how to release a rocket attack into Syria. And he said, we're going to take the next 48 hours to deliberate how we are going to engage in Syria. And it was the same 50 hours that we were praying like a ring of fire around the nation. And we just knew we were at a divine moment.
Yeah.
And so we went into those at that point, we had 15 different locations.
Yeah.
Everybody went into that prayer meeting knowing this is for the people of Syria. This is for the destiny of the nation. And we prayed it through. And I don't know if you remember this, but it was a pretty heated moment because Russia and Iran were threatening to retaliate. And the whole world kind of went into this moment of like, are we about to be on the edge of World War III?
Yeah.
And here we are right in the middle of it, praying, worshiping, releasing the presence of God, and crying out for mercy. It's incredible.
It is.
You can see it in the film.
Exactly, which I would recommend to people watch the documentary to learn more about that. But what's really amazing is you guys have witnessed so many Muslims encounter Christ. Can you just share one story that has stood out to you with our audience?
Totally. I have 100, and I was in a prayer room this morning here in Richmond, and I was like, God, what's one story I could tell? And the one that came to my mind was, so we have teams in multiple nations across the Middle East running houses of prayer. And I got this story a couple years ago, but one of our teams went into a village outreach. Actually, one young Muslim man got saved in the house of prayer, and he wanted our team to go meet with his family in a village. So they drive about an hour outside the city to this young man's house to meet with his family. And typical of Muslim culture, which is very hospitable, very warm, our team comes in, sits in the living room. They have food set up. They're welcoming. And so our team is kind of sitting in a semicircle in this house in a village in unreached nation, the Muslim world. And the mother, and this is funny because you'll hear a lot in the documentary, a lot of times it's the matriarch of the family that has these encounters.
Wow.
But the mother starts to get really emotional, and she's kind of uncomfortable. And so the son, who is with our team, says, "What's going on? Are you okay?" And she said, "I had a dream last night, and in the dream, I was sitting in my living room, and she said I saw him and her and him, and she points out every one of our team members." And she said, in the dream, I asked these strangers, "Why are you in my house?" And in the dream, they said, "We're here to tell you about Jesus." And then she looked around the room and she said, "Is that why you're here?" And our team said, "Yes, why we're here." They preached the gospel, and the whole family gets touched and saved. And it was just, Jesus is already going ahead of us across the Muslim world, and he's just inviting us into his story.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I wish we could talk more, but guys, the 50 Hours documentary releases on YouTube on June 5th. For more information on the film, all you have to do is go to 700 Club Interactive. Randall, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for what you're doing in the Middle East. It's making a difference.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We get to do this.
Yeah, God bless you. Hey everyone, I'm Ashley Key. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so we can reach more people with encouraging content like you just watched, and so you never miss a beat. See you next time, and God bless.